Thank you very much. Good morning, everyone. Bonjour à toutes et tous. It's my pleasure to be here this morning. I didn't realize there was going to be anonymous online chats, so that's always. Oh wait, this one just in. How can you be so young and have so much responsibility? Oh, thank you very much. That's fantastic. It can go both good and bad. So what I'd like to do before I dive into it and talk all about quantum, the quantum strategy, and what we're doing is just, and I'm not sure if I'm allowed to do this, but I'm going to do it anyway. I just want to get a sense of who we've got in the room here. So I hope you've all had your coffee and you're all ready to go. How many folks here this morning are from academia, either students or profs? Hands up. Okay, great. Maybe about half. How many from business, the business side? Oh, okay, good mix. And then government. Little hands. Yeah, government, fantastic. Okay, so that's interesting. So we've got probably 2/3 business academia and 1/3 government or so. So that's a fantastic mix. So that should probably help us in terms of the conversations that we're going to have this morning. So basically, my role within the government system is to coordinate the federal efforts between all of the departments and agencies, many of which you'll see here speaking after me this morning. We also work with provinces, not with territories so far, but with various provinces. As well as, I should need to give a shout out to Quantum Industry Canada, Lisa Lambert, who's going to be speaking a little later on. Lisa and I form a dyad or a tag team that we travel to these events. We were almost traveling tandem everywhere to these events here and around the world. Myself giving the government point of view, and Lisa, of course, giving the industry point of view. So we are hopefully able representatives of Canada on the world stage. What we also do, in addition to working closely with federal departments, we also work closely with stakeholders, both in the business community, and I've had the pleasure of dealing with many of you, and it's nice to see so many familiar faces at these events. And actually, sometimes it's even nice to see some unfamiliar faces, as we often deal with similar companies and stakeholders throughout, both in business, academia, and within the government. Maybe one other thing to ask: how many folks in the room would say that they are very familiar with quantum technologies? Okay, not bad, but not everyone. Okay, that's good. So what we want to avoid doing when we do these sorts of conferences and speeches is to avoid what I call quantum bingo. So maybe we'll get it out of the way now. Superposition, entanglement, spin qubits, and my favorite, of course, dual-use technologies. Exactly. So dual-use technologies. Quantum, of course, is a dual-use technology. What that means, essentially, from the government's point of view, is it has uses both in the defense realm as well as in the non-defense sort of commercial kind of realm. What we've used that to do in terms of quantum is to access funding that's available for defense, and you'll hear more about that. Within the National Quantum Strategy, we'll take money from whatever source we can get. If space has money, we're in for quantum for space. If defense has money, we're in for it. So whatever helps you as researchers and as businesses, we're all open to it. And frankly, what we found is quantum does have actually uses in such a wide variety of applications that there's no shortage of potentials. So maybe what I'll do is just give a little recent history on where we've been in quantum in terms of the investments, because sometimes it's easy to get trapped in the moment. We see where we are right now, and we can focus on things that maybe aren't going as well as they possibly could, and it's possible to lose sight of how far we've come in just a relatively short period of time. Our story starts in 1979. No, I'm just kidding. Our story starts about 5 or 10 years ago when Canada built up an incredible quantum capacity from coast to coast, basically on the NSERC investment. So NSERC, about roughly 20 years ago, I'm going back a little further, I said. About 20 years ago, NSERC began investing in quantum research. We had a number of what we called CFREFs. I don't remember the acronym to the name. They always have Canada, and they always have excellence and probably research in there. But the two CFREFs, one at Waterloo and one at Sherbrooke, really built the basis for those two ecosystems. We also invest through the Canada Foundation for Innovation, or CFI, as well as, it'd be remiss not to say provincial investments, of course. Within Quebec and within Sherbrooke, of course, we have the Zone d'Innovation, which has made substantial investments, not just in quantum and Sherbrooke, but in other ecosystems around the province. Of course, in Alberta, we have Quantum City, and I think we have David here somewhere. Oh, there you are, hiding in the back, from Quantum City here today, as well as in the BCU ecosystem as well, and in Canada, of course. Sorry, in Canada. Ontario equals Canada. No, in Ontario, of course, with the Institute for Quantum Computing and the Perimeter Institute. And so basically where we started is in budget 2021. We had the $360 million that was invested. We did this a little bit differently. So the budget money came first. Money came first, strategy came second, which is somewhat unusual, but not unheard of. And one of the points about this money is this dedicated funding. So what that means is it's on top of all of the other money that the government is already spending on quantum. And so we rolled those out over a period of 2 or 3 years. We also began extensive consultations. Now, we were lucky that there was a university body that had already given us a whole bunch of suggestions on what was needed to develop Canada's quantum advantage. We accepted most of those, almost completely. And then we rolled out the strategy. We did a number of roundtables. That's when I first met many of you. I think we did 7 or 8 different roundtables, virtual in those days, because of course we're coming out of the pandemic, virtual roundtables. And basically, to be fair, we've been consulting every day since. So basically, since when I came into it in 2001, we've been coming to events like this, doing roundtables, meeting with folks. Should also say we established the Quantum Advisory Council. So Dr. Stephanie Simmons of Photonic Inc., of course, Simon Fraser, she is the chair, and unfortunately Ray LaFlamme, our dear colleague who passed away last summer, was also the co-chair. So his loss is certainly felt within the community, but we received extensive advice from that advisory council. So the strategy itself was based on 3 missions and 3 pillars. The missions are probably familiar to you. If not, I'd encourage you. I bring some I get made fun of. I often bring sort of hard copies of the paper. Everyone laughs at me, but I notice they're all gone whenever I leave. But I'm almost out, so I only have 2 or 3 left. So I didn't bring them this time. But basically, we have 3 missions within the strategy: 1 on compute software, 1 on sensors, and 1 on communications. Nothing horribly unique about that. If you go around to look at other countries and their strategies, they basically have similar areas. Some put the emphasis a little more on materials than we did. Basically, we took materials to be an underlying technology that supports all of the missions. Other countries make it a separate mission, tomato, tomato. But the point is, those are the 3 that we've done. We've done extensive road mapping for those, and many of you participated in that, so thank you very much for all your input. We also received provincial input into the roadmaps. For those of you not in the government, that may or may not seem like a significant accomplishment. I would say it's the first time, by my count, since 1987, the provincial governments had submitted to a federal roadmap. So we take our engagement with the provinces quite seriously. We're quite pleased at how well we're being able to coordinate. Not perfectly, of course, but we certainly have excellent communications and lines with them as well. And so then things changed a bit. So we had our strategy, we rolled out the strategy, we've rolled out the funding, we've gone through that. And then the competition, 2 things happened. So 1, the competition ramped up, certainly internationally. And 2, there was an incredible push towards commercialization. So we often get the comment, why didn't the original strategy have more on commercialization? Which I think is a fair comment. What I would say though is that when we were designing the strategy in 2021 through 2023, there wasn't nearly as much commercialization. That's something that's come forward really at light speed, certainly within the last 2 to 3 to 5 years. And so now you'll see an increasing emphasis basically on almost all federal strategies, not just in quantum, but all federal strategies in terms of how to support commercialization. I would say it's a work in progress. I don't think we found all of the best ways to support companies and to grow. I think the sense is we don't want to miss the opportunity. And I think that's well understood throughout the political, the bureaucratic, and all the level and all of the governments that are here. And I don't think that we are. Personally, this is Michael's opinion, not the government of Canada's, but I don't believe there's sort of one moment and that's it. I think it's accumulation of moments over the time, and certainly we're doing what we can to maximize what we can do during those moments, as are all of you. By the way, you all make it easy in the sense that we go internationally to collaborate with other countries. It's not a hard sell. To get other countries and other companies and other researchers interested in working with Canadians. It's not a hard sell. The other thing that changed, obviously, our neighbors to the south changed their approach, both in terms of how they deal with Canada and how they deal with the world. I don't think I need to tell this audience much more about the challenges and problems that can give to a small trade-dependent country like Canada. It also puts in stark relief our partnerships and our international collaborations. I'm not sure we were ever as naive as researchers, as collaborators, as sometimes we're made out to be. I don't think that was ever entirely true, but I think it certainly sharpened the focus. So one of the questions, we often talk, I go to all these international meetings, we often talk about, well, let's collaborate together. Why would anyone want to collaborate? Well, the reason usually is we want access to something we don't have. Either that's talent, some specific facility, some specific equipment, or something that we can't get, and likewise. So long as both parties get what they're looking for and go into it with eyes open, there's no problem. If only one party gets what they want and the other does not, that's not going to make a great partnership. How many of you were at the Quantum World Congress in Washington? Couple. Okay, so one of the events we saw at the World Quantum, so this is like the Americans have the World Series, they also have the World Quantum Congress where they bring various different countries together, usually every fall, usually in Washington. Governor Pritzker of Illinois basically described his version of what collaboration means. Collaboration basically means all of you that have talent move to Chicago. I mean, he didn't say that exactly, but that's basically it. Right? And so that's their view. Of course, many of you who are in the business side will know the state governments in Illinois and Maryland and a couple of other places, they are all providing generous incentives for companies to relocate on the hundreds of millions of dollars. Maybe Illinois has found Al Capone's vault. Maybe it's hiding under Lake Michigan somewhere, I'm not sure, where they have the extra money to pay these hundreds of millions of dollars to try and incent firms. They've found it. All to say, though, is that there is an increasing competition and allure for companies to go to not just the United States, but other countries throughout Europe and others. Some of you may be familiar with the DARPA program, as well as the QBI, or the Quantum Benchmarking Initiative. So this was a program, interestingly enough, the program was set up to disprove that a fault-tolerant quantum computer could be created. So it was a negative. They were saying it couldn't be done, which is an interesting way to approach it. And so basically a number of companies, not just from Canada, but from the United States and around the world, had applied to be part of this program. We had 3 Canadian quantum computer companies, so Xanadu, Photonic, and Nordquantique, who were part of it, as well as software company 1Qubit. They participate as part of the Hewlett-Packard Enterprises Consortium. So as you can imagine, that's a pretty big swath of the Canadian quantum computer companies participating in this program. And so one thing from the government's point of view, we don't want to lose those champions. We want to anchor them here in Canada to have them grow and succeed. I'm often asked, sort of, Michael, what would the future look like? What would your success look like in doing this? The easiest way I've sort of found to encapsulate it is to say, I would like to have another Nortel with a slightly better outcome. Maybe not slightly better, with a lot better outcome than what they, but that's, the point is not the Nortel thing or the BlackBerry thing. The point is that scale and size and importance, right? Nortel was a global player, right? That's what we want for our quantum computing companies, okay? So that's kind of the overarching sort of goal of these activities. And then one of the other things that was different, so we launched, so one of the things we did in response earlier this fall, back in December. See, time goes by, it's hard to remember all the things when they happen. So back in December, the government launched the Canadian Quantum Champions Program, CQCP, which basically provided funding to those 3 companies plus Anion Systems of Quebec, of Montreal, who are all developing fault-tolerant quantum computers. The Canadian approach is a little bit different than the American in the sense that we're looking to help these companies develop a fault-tolerant quantum computer. So it's a little bit of a different, we're not proving a negative, we're trying to make sure that they do so. The National Research Council will be providing the technical due diligence. So there's a whole series of milestones that these companies need to make in order to get through. Timing's perfect, Raf. I was just saying about CQCP, so you can tell everyone later on about the milestones that one has to make to get through. So CQCP launched 23 million per firm of the 4 firms, with more information to come to anchor them to Canada and to get them to stay and to succeed here. One of the last things I'll say about the domestic programming, just before I switch to international, is that we created within the existing federal programs some unique quantum streams. So for folks on the research side, you'll note that under NSERC there are quantum-specific streams. So there's the Alliance International for Quantum, as well as the 2 domestic sort of programs. That's unique. So there's actually no other technology that has a unique quantum stream. So that was something we set up as well under MyTax. For those who know about MyTax, so that's for the PhD fellowships and internships, both folks coming to Canada as well as Canadian students going abroad. We actually have unique quantum money for that as well. So those are 2 unique programs that we did sort of as a pilot. That's a little bit different than what we have in basically every other technology. So maybe with that, I'll switch for a second to from the domestic to the international point of view, just to talk for a second about the G7 as well as some of the other activities. But first I'll start, last year was the International Year, I have to remember all the names here, International Year of Quantum Science and Technology. Does anyone know what the year before was? Yeah, me neither. So, but the point is that the point is that quantum's moment had come, right? And that what we did in Canada and certainly around the world was we tried to make the most of it. So what does that mean? We hosted a large number of different events at the various quantum hubs from coast to coast. One of them including Quantum Now, hosted by Quantum Industry Canada in Montreal. That was one of the, frankly, one of the most successful international events that I've been to. It really served the purpose of showcasing Canada's commercial abilities with the different companies and activities. So it was an excellent event to showcase all that Canada had to offer. We modeled this after what happens in other countries. UK every November has a quantum showcase that we modeled many of the actions after. So it was a big success, and the feedback from international activities was excellent. So all of these, none of these things individually turn the tide or change things very much, but collectively they bring attention to it. So some of you may also be familiar with the G7. So of course Canada was G7 president last year. During our presidency, one of the things that we advanced was the Kananaskis Declaration on Quantum Technologies. This is the first time that the G7 as a body had made that declaration, thanks to many people who had suggested that we front those activities. The declaration itself, if you haven't had a chance to look at it, it's a good easy read. It's only about a page and a half or so. All of these things are pitched at a fairly high level. So if one's expecting sort of granular details on what one's going to do with quantum, that's not the nature of international relations or what we could get everyone to agree to, basically, in order to bring it forward. One thing I would say is that what the declarations serve to do is to highlight the importance. So basically all G7 leaders came together to say quantum is important, and we feel it's important enough to make a statement about it. The actual sort of nitty-gritty details of the statement itself, we can put that into practice in a variety of ways. So I wouldn't get too hung up on the actual sort of specific wording in the text. It's more of the importance that it's shown, and the fact that our Prime Minister and others said quantum's important and we want to do all kinds of things about it. So that's really its use. It also helps within the government to highlight to departments and agencies that may not be as involved or active in quantum that this is indeed a priority. In addition to the declaration itself, there was two other things that came of it. So the first was a working group. We had a virtual working group meeting back in October, I believe, in which we discussed the societal implications of quantum technologies. Maybe some of you got a chance to come to that, so thank you. I think it was a fantastic discussion. The French have now taken over the G7 presidency this year, and we'll see what they advance in terms of the quantum realm. As well, there was $22.5 million that came with the funds as well to launch joint research calls with other G7 partners. To date, we've had 2 of those. So one is with the UK on a quantum communications satellite mission. You may have seen those before. So the Canadian Space Agency has launched their call for proposals, or sorry, their request for information, and the call for proposals shall be going out shortly. So this is to produce a QKD, or quantum key distribution simulation across satellites involving encrypted technologies. So it's quite exciting to get that work going with the United Kingdom. As well, the National Research, I told you I have to think of all the alphabet soup of acronyms. The National Research Council Industrial Research Assistance Program, or IRAP, launched a joint call with Germany, and this is for quantum technologies. There's 3 or 4 areas of quantum that a company can work with German companies on to commercialize and set up a consortium to go through. So those are the specific initiatives that we're funding. As well, there was some more money in there for NSERC for the Catalyst grants. So those who want to work internationally, the Catalyst is available, as well as there were some top-ups to the additional alliance funding. I told you at the outset that we go through whatever vehicle we can to get support for quantum technologies, including this one. So that one was quite successful. As part of the declaration, just the other thing I'll mention there quickly is about the standard setting. This comes up quite often in quantum, and so one of the things that was launched was the NMIQ, which is the pre-standards work by a number of countries, including Canada and G7 members, as well as others. So it's an attempt to help get countries together and on the same page. Sir Peter Knight of the UK was telling me that there's something like 258 different standards activities that are involved with quantum. So no shortage of activities. If anyone has extra time on their hands or extra interest, I'm sure within one of those 258 or so, we could accommodate more Canadian participation. The point of the participation, though, in standards for Canadians is to make sure we have a fair playing field. That's really the whole point of it, in that we don't want to let any adversarial country set a standard that Canadian companies and others have to match, which unduly favors a technology that to our detriment. So that's the point of participating in those events, as well as to know, of course, what the standard is going to be and to help influence it our way. Should also mention Canada a little while ago signed up for Horizon Europe. This is to the Pillar 2 activities, so that Canada has participated for quite a long time in the activities, but this allows us to get Pillar 2 funding, and so there are lots of opportunities for Canadian researchers to work with Europeans. As I mentioned earlier on in my discussion about the shift and what's going on south of the border, European connections have assumed a prominence that perhaps they hadn't before. We're also working through Eureka. Again, some may be familiar with that program in order to connect Canadian and European primarily companies to work on joint research projects. We also have collaboration agreements with the UK, Japan, and Denmark, and we have a number of them, a number of other ones that have been agreed to and we're working on, but have not been publicly announced yet. So the purpose of all these, like I said, is to make it easier to reduce the friction, if you will, of people of working together between countries. Maybe one of the truisms of this is that countries don't really work together. People work together. And so these agreements, like I said, are almost always pitched at a very high level, but it shows the importance that the Government of Canada and the other signature government place on it, as well as to say, look, this is important, we want this to work together. We generally have behind the scenes a work plan, which describes sometimes joint calls, sometimes MyTech, sometimes Canada Foundation for Innovation, sometimes other activities, in order to make it a little bit easier for everyone to work together. One of the other things we're doing to promote Canadian business is a number of trade missions. So many of the folks in the room have been on various trade missions with us, most recently to the Quantum World Congress that I mentioned before, the UK Quantum Showcase, as well as Japan. The purpose of these are to showcase Canadian businesses, what they have to offer, as well as to connect them through business-to-business work. We work with the Trade Commissioner Service in Global Affairs Canada, who have provided just excellent support from our missions around the broad, and we have a whole host of ones that are planned for the upcoming year. So looking very much forward to being able to promote Canadian business around the world. Maybe now I'll switch over to NATO for a second. How are we doing for time? Perfect. Okay, so in terms of the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, or NATO, they had produced a quantum roadmap a year or two ago, which again shows the importance that the alliance is placing on it. We also have the Transatlantic Quantum Community, or the TQC, which has a number, all these things have great acronyms. I'm not sure who comes up with all these, but they have great acronyms. The Quantum Community, which many of the companies participate in. I lead Workstream 1 for Canada, which looks at some of the supply chain mapping and some of the enabling factors in order to get quantum technologies adopted within the alliance, and then what problems could ensue in terms of the unavailability of certain materials. And so we've done a lot of work on those. There's a business stream which helps to connect quantum businesses with defense users in other countries, led by Denmark, as well as there's the NATO Diana activity. There, of course, they're an accelerator in Copenhagen, and we have a couple of Canadian companies, including some here today, that have participated in that. And then last but not least, under NATO, the NATO Innovation Fund, or the NIF, which provides equity and other financing for Canadian and other companies. And so one of the other things that I'd mentioned about the change is the investments of other countries. So I mentioned the DARPA and the QBI already. They're certainly not the only ones. So Germany had 2 billion euros that they put forward. The French have €1.5 billion, I believe. Australia, another billion, the UK. So there's an awful lot of money floating around for various different countries in terms of how they're supporting their ecosystem. And so the question becomes, how can we effectively respond? So we can respond at two levels. The first is that Canada, is relatively unlikely to be able to outspend our neighbors to the south. So what do we have to do? We have to spend a little bit smarter. And so what does spending smarter mean? First of all, it means focusing on companies that we think can make could make a success in the CQCP. As I say, we invested in the 4 companies that are most likely to develop a fault-tolerant quantum computer. For our equipment, both at universities, equipment and infrastructure, not just equipment, one of the keys is to avoid duplication. So if you only have so much money to build the same facility, to buy the same equipment at 2 universities or 2 places side by side or close together, that's very unlikely to be effective. I would say that historically we were less prescriptive on this than we are certainly in quantum for future investments. We just don't have the money to go around, and so duplication, I mean, maybe in some cases it might be warranted, but in general, we'll be taking a very close eye to making sure that those success. We often get accused, and perhaps rightly so, of spreading the peanut butter a little bit too thin, as they say. Maybe I think that's fair. I think we do have, certainly four major hubs for quantum. I think you've seen most of the funding has gone into those 4 major hubs. The question, of course, becomes how to fund other excellent research that may not be at those hubs. I think the answer will be in connecting others to the existing hubs. We can't fund quantum research at the same level at every single university in Canada or at every single location. It's just not going to be the way to achieve. We have to grow the domestic ecosystems. So one of the reasons that other countries are not perhaps seeing the success they thought they might in terms of spending billions of dollars is because you need an ecosystem to support it. So in other words, one can go out and spend $2 billion or $1 billion. One can buy a series of quantum computers and one can put them somewhere. But unless you have the ecosystem to support it, to grow and use it, I'm not sure how much value one's going to get out of that. And so we have here in Canada, through the results of, for all of your activities and all the other results, we have a very strong ecosystem which allows for that success. You also need a whole bunch of supporting companies in order to make any individual company a success. And so one of the other things that we need to do is we need to connect better to end users. So that's something that we've been trying over the last year or 2 or so. We've been running a series of information sessions, both with industries like banking, like insurance, like electricity, like oil and gas. I think we've made some progress in getting them interested in it. I don't think to date they're so interested in it that they've opened up their checkbook and they're ready to buy it and go. I think that's the next step. So I think that's something that we'll need to move on. As I say, some people call these sandboxes. There's as many definitions of these things as there are these things, but I think the idea is the same, to say, okay, how can we connect companies to end users to not only provide a client for the company, provide a real world test of their activities, as well as to prove to the purchaser or the potential purchaser, this is useful and this helps you. It's not so much for the end user, by the way, it's not so much the quantumness of anything that matters. It's that it does whatever they want to do better than what they have now. So if you're a mining company and there's a sensor that allows you to find whatever you're looking for better, cheaper, faster than what you have now, I don't think the fact that it's quantum is the big deal. It's the fact that it lets you do that better. Of course, it's a big deal to the people making it, and I don't want to underestimate the effort that goes into doing it. But I say purely from the purchaser's point of view, it's not the quantumness of it that's going to be the big deal. Okay. The second thing about quantum in general is that the impacts of the quantum industry are one thing, and we certainly see it growing. We see about 2,300 or so people in the industry, about 125 or so companies, and growing and profitable. But it will be the knock-on effects to the rest of the economy that are going to be the major thing. So it'll make the mining industry that much more profitable and effective. It'll make, logistics work much better. It'll make all the other parts of the economy work better. And so those are going to be the real effects. And that's why it's important to engage end users, because it'll get them to use it and adopt it. I often tell the story. So I travel a fair amount. Last time I was on Air Canada, not to blame any particular airline, the passenger manifest was printed out with an Oki Data dot matrix printer. If I go to the doctor faxes my prescription. Maybe there's some others that are more advanced, but they fax my prescription over to Shoppers Drug Mart, whatever. The point of these is these are not the hallmarks of the frontier of technology. And so my car dealership, they used what looked to be a DOS-based program. Maybe it was Windows 3, I'm not sure, but it looked pretty ancient to do the servicing. And so all to say is there's a lot of room for improvement, not to pick on Air Canada or anyone in particular, but the point is that there's a lot of room for improvement and a lot of adoption. Canada historically is a laggard in terms of adoption. And so one of the things we've got to do is to move that forward. And frankly, for companies too, it's totally understandable. If there are not Canadian adopters, it's understandable that they would go international to find other adopters. Business is business, and Canada needs to keep up. Within the government as well, by the way. So not only to throw slings and arrows at businesses and others, within the government as well. We haven't been historically an early adopter of many of these technologies either. And that's something that's sort of behind the scenes within the government that my team and I are working on, is to try and folks at Defense as well, to try and encourage other departments to adopt and use it. We've had some success, but I think there's more work to do there for sure. Now, one of the other things, of course, and I mentioned there for just a second, of course, Defense is one of the early adopters of many of these technologies, and you're going to hear a little bit more on this later, so I won't steal that part of the presentation. Although to say, one of the things that has changed recently, so a couple of things have changed. One is there's been much bigger focus on defense in Canada than there's ever been, certainly in my lifetime. And so that presents a whole lot of opportunities, not just for quantum, by the way. I mean, we're here talking about quantum, but I think for a whole bunch of other activities. So I think what we're poised to do, working with our colleagues at National Defense, is to try and make the most of it for quantum, and try and maximize those opportunities, both through international alliances like NATO, domestic programs, and you'll hear a little bit more about some of those in terms. But we're all trying to row together and to make that better. So maybe with that, maybe I'll close. I don't know, do we have time do you want to have questions, or should we go to the next speaker?